Call the informational meeting to order. First item on the agenda is City Council staff reports by Deborah Owens, City Clerk.
Thank you, and good afternoon, Sioux Falls City Council. I wanted to just review a few things on the agenda tonight for the 7 o'clock agenda, but before I do, I just wanted to let you know our Breakfast Club meeting has about 9 legislators who will be attending on Wednesday. We have a total of 25 RSVPs, so we have a good crowd going. And also, other than hearing from a few council members about your legislative priorities, pardon me, I just got braces, so I can't speak very well. If you any other ideas, please forward those on to me by tomorrow, and then we'll get those out and get those ready for that meeting. And so to begin, on your 7 o'clock agenda, there are a number of amendments. Item number 16, which is your campground ordinance, there has been discussion between the Attorney's Office and Planning, and I think at this time, just to give you an update, there were no citations actually issued for that campground ordinance. There is a notice of hearing to the campground owners who, for their conditional use permit, if I'm getting that right, Mr. Cooper. And I believe that actually under that process, there's an ordinance in place under Appendix B, 15.59.075, which would allow the planning director to decide to revoke that permit. Then it would go to the Planning Commission and then ultimately the City Council. So that issue would have final discretion would be the City Council anyway, so I don't think there will be any amendments on that ordinance tonight. In addition, number 17, I actually pulled that out. You have a separate packet at your desk. It has agenda item 17 on it. That actually has a couple of amendments, so I wanted to make sure we walked through that thoroughly before the 7 o'clock agenda. There will be one amendment from Councilmember Bob Litz. He is bringing an amendment that is an agreement between the home builders and Mid-Continent. There's a summary in there at the very beginning of that agreement, which has been worked out, and I'll just read it to you briefly. The proposed amendment clearly separates Section 44-31 and 44-33. 31 now deals with the development issues, and 43 speaks to build out for cable providers. In 44-31, there is a density standard of 30 homes per mile or per line mile before cable must be provided. Before then, developers and the cable company may, not shall, work together to bring cable video service sooner. In those cases where agreement cannot be reached, the City Council can be asked to arbitrate. And in the very back of that, there's a colored map. Pardon me, there's a colored map that you can kind of see that's similar to up there, that you can actually see what those 30 homes per line mile would look like, to kind of give you a visual so you can know about how that would appear in a new development. If you go down on that document, you can find that there are sections that are struck, and then there are inserts with the underscored and overstruck version. I'll leave those for your review later. And then, in addition, Councilmember Staggers has an amendment tonight for that same ordinance. And his would be to strike the cable, splitting the community grant, which is that 50-50 split with the Sioux Falls School District and then Cable Channel 16. And it would then deposit all of that revenue into the city treasury. And that would be that amendment for item number 17. And then item number 18. There's an amendment by Councilmember Staggers who would amend point 2 or 2.8 of the agreement, and that would be to, again, dealing with that community grant funding provision. It would delete the sentence that says 0.5% shall be dedicated as a community grant for the community expenditures as determined by the city, and therefore that would all then be deposited in the city treasury. And in 19, there is an amendment for the garbage and recycling ordinance. That language is really straightforward. I'm going to let you review that. And finally, if you will, on item number 27, there is an additional amendment concerning that community grant, and that would be to delete that 50-50 split between Channel 16 and the Sioux Falls School District, and that should be at 2.5%, pardon me, in your red notes, not 3%. That rate is not being raised. So it's a 2.5%, keeping that revenue the same. Any questions on that? Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, question regarding the amendments on the cable TV franchise bit. So have these amendments by a couple of my colleagues, has the city attorney's office had a
Yes.
chance to look at these and weigh
Yes.
in on these at all?
Yes, they have.
Okay, and do they have any thoughts on either?
You know, I'm going to
any of
leave
them?
that to Councilmember Staggers. They were approved to style and form, and that they are in good order. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Any other questions for Deborah? Okay, we'll move on to the next item. The next one is Mayor Munson. Is there anything from the Mayor's office? Okay. Next item is the Audit Committee. There's no report there. Fiscal Committee?
No report.
Land Use Committee?
Yes, next Monday, November 23rd at 4 p.m., we're going to be having a land use committee, and all we're going to be talking about will be the campground ordinance proposed by the planning department.
Any questions for Councilor Staggers on that? Public Service Committee?
No report.
Okay. City Council open discussion. I would just like to inform the council that in regards to, and I'm not sure what item number it is, but regards to the Harrisburg sanitary sewer deal, there's some changes in the works as a result of some conversations with the administration and the development community, and then they are going to take that to the IRAB board on Wednesday, and then the home builders meet also that day, and I guess we're going to be asked to defer it to the first meeting in December, which should meet the timelines of the Harrisburg community as well. So, any other open discussion? Councilor Knudsen?
Just a couple of really quick items. Just a reminder that the Lincoln County Commission has invited all of us down to tea tomorrow at 1 o'clock. And the address in that letter that we received from the Lincoln County Commissioner Dale Long was the wrong address at 600 East First Street. You know, and again, the topic for that meeting tomorrow is to just teach us more about the new ag assessment program adopted by the state legislature. And then I just wanted to say that I always find the local Veterans Day program very meaningful in every way, but this year was, of course, especially just extra wonderful, actually, to have Corey Breest and his wife there, and she did such a nice job giving the major address. But also, the Veteran of the Year is our Jamie Palmer's father. And I wanted to get up to congratulate him the other day, and I didn't quite get there because I got stopped on by a couple other people. But his name is Mike Rothenbuehler, and he, again, was named the Veteran of the Year, which I think is really special.
Any other council discussion before we move into the presentations? Well, we can get to the matter at hand while everybody's here. We have the presentation for the Event Center Task Force by Terry Balloon and Jim Wooster, the co-chairs, and also Bob Winkles, who is the facilitator for the task force. So, gentlemen.
I appreciate it, and thanks to the council and Mayor Munson and for providing us this time, and also for your love of the city. When I see the hours you guys spend and meet, it just says a lot about us. I especially want to thank, and we'll introduce our task force and resource people, but your council members, Pat Costello and Bob Litz, above and beyond, we really appreciate their service and the information, the input that you guys brought to our meetings, our many, many meetings, as you know, and we do appreciate that. And Mayor Munson, I appreciate the opportunity to get to know and work with Terry Balloon. This year and a half seems like 12 to me, but we got through it. I know I speak for Terry, and I mean this sincerely. When we first got together as a task force and the resource people, a lot of those folks, we had never met each other until we actually sat down for the first time. And I'm going to tell you, no matter what comes out of this last 18 months, the people that we've met, and Terry and I speak about this often when we're drinking coffee, we probably would not have had a chance to get to know some of these folks, and they're just absolutely wonderful, wonderful folks, and it's just been great. I'd like at this time, and I'll get, I think I have to stay with the mic, and there's no particular order, but I'm going to ask the task force members to wave or stand so you know who they are. You probably do anyway, but these are the folks that we've kind of been joined at the hip here for the longest time, and you'll meet Terry later, our co-chair, Terry Balloon. By the way, the school board, the school district, Darren and Debbie, where'd you wind up? I talked to you a minute ago. Yeah, these two have just been, stand up. They've just, we thank the school district and you two and the folks that you represent, and I mean that sincerely. It's really, really been good. Bob Christensen, Bob's right here, and I'm sure you all know who Bob, and Aaron Hadorf. Aaron was our Augustana graduate. He'd been out about less than a year. He was appointed to the task force. Just an outstanding young man, never missed a meeting, never missed a trip, and he is now in law school at William Mitchell in Minneapolis, doing well. We've talked to him several times. He voted on all the things that we did, so the final 18, he was in on it. He kept track of what we were doing. Noel Olson, you know Noel from the old North Central days. Joe Bunkers, Joe, thank you. Yeah, great young man, and again, just very loyal. Steve Eggers is not with us, but I think most of you know Steve. Gene Fuller, Gene, thank you. Or Gene Fuller's over here, Gene Nichols, I'm sorry. Gene, I know where you were sitting, and then Gene Nichols is over here. Al Schoeneman, Al, we shared a few stories on our bus trips. Dean Buckenberg, Dean, thank you so much. Dana, there's Dana Dykehouse. Jimmy Enneman, did Jim make it? I know he was going to come. There he is. Hi, Jimbo. Good to have you with us. We mentioned Bob. We call Charlene kind of our introvert. She never says anything. There's Charlene, one of our great But and then again, Pat. And I'll tell you what. And if you would, and I don't know if this is appropriate, can you give them a round of applause, everybody in here, because they have really, really worked hard. We've had a wonderful group of people, our resource folks that we turned to 195 different times for advice and information. They were at the meetings. Mike Cooper, Mike, and Don Kearney. Mike is here. Don with City Director of Parks. Don was at many of our meetings. I'm supposed to stay with the mic. So Jody Schwan, we can't thank Jody enough for all the advice and the information. We needed something. Jody got it for us. Terry Ellis Schmidt. Terry was at almost all the meetings. He's CBB. Russ DeCurtains and Scott Kavanaugh. Russ and Scott, both you guys, thank you. Again, they helped us with tours. They were at all our meetings with us. The fellow that's running the Sioux Falls Sports Authority and his partner, Mike Sullivan and Brad Coleman. Mike, Brad, there he is. Oh, they're sitting side by side. Brad's the better looking one if you look back here. And then we got Don. Bob O'Connell with the Chamber. Bob's in the back. Scott Lawrence and Schiller. No, Scott made it, but just for your information, Lawrence and Schiller provided a person to help us with our technical stuff. They just pro bono that if we needed some help with websites, they were good enough to provide that for us. Ann Davis with Sioux Falls. Did Ann come with the school district? I didn't see her. And then Mark Miley. Mark is here. I just talked to Mark. So, and again, if you would, those folks have been with us for a long time. So we thank you very much. I'm supposed to follow something, right, Ross? They ought to know better than that with me. I can't do. 18. Yeah. Yes, sir, Robert.
I just wanted to interject here. There's been one citizen who wasn't on the task force, but she has faithfully attended every meeting, and I wanted to recognize Cheryl Rath.
Yes, absolutely. Cheryl Rath.
So thank you, Cheryl.
Never missed the meeting. She never missed a meeting, and that is a fact, and we do appreciate it. Thank you, Robert. Good catch. We appreciate that. Well, as I said, 18 months ago, following an appointment by the mayor, 18 volunteer citizens began their work, and what a time it's been. We started with a series of listening sessions. I had 22 or 23 around the city. We tried to have different times, different locations. We had from 5 to 50 people. We tried to get to just to talk to the folks about what it is that they think and what it is that we should be doing. I think almost to a person it was pretty obvious that the public said to us there is a need to do something about our current convention and entertainment venue. Now, obviously, there's a ton of different opinions on what and how and all of that, but that was just seemed to be almost to everybody that attended. It was interesting, a couple things that they said to us, and this was very common. One, tell us what the numbers are. When you get done with it, if something's going to lose a couple hundred, tell us that. If it's going to make a couple hundred, tell us what the economic impact is, and then we'll decide. And then I think the thing that we heard at every meeting was, would you please be transparent? Let us know what you're doing. When you have a meeting or if you're going to do something, can you tell us what it is? And I'm really proud, and I speak for this task force. We never held a meeting, not one meeting that was not open to everybody, to the press, to the public. Sometimes that was a little bit tricky, and sometimes I think it would have been a little more comfortable if we could have done some of the things, but we didn't. We started out doing it that way, and we stayed with that the whole way through. The debates, the discussions, the bus trips, everything that happened on the website, and they had an opportunity to be there. And like I say, we're very proud of that. We started on taking our trips. The Winkles organized all of these things, and they brought along the sandwiches and the pop, and away we went. Started out by going to Fargo first. went Fargo and toured the Fargo Dome, and I would just comment that every place we went, they were really, really good to us. The management of the facilities took us in, they toured with us, they set us down, and they talked to us. And then from Fargo, I can't remember who it was, but 4 or 5 of the crew, I think Pat, you were one, and Bob, and a couple others went on to Grand Forks for us, which was it. Who were the others, Pat, if I could?
Gene was there, and then I think Russ.
Kavanaugh?
I think Russ, or Scott, yeah. Anyway, they went on, and so that we had somebody at the Grand Forks venue up too. Then from there, we went to Sioux City and Omaha and toured those facilities, and again, we're just treated like royalty. And then finally to Des Moines to see the Wells Fargo Arena. Went down. Terry went first, liked what he saw, and then he and I and a couple others went down, and then we took the bus. And then we started meeting. Tried to meet about every 2 weeks and sometimes more often. I don't know who, I could give you a list of 40 people. We've had experts and constituencies from about every walk of life: sports teams and youth sports and financing, professional consultants, airport, arena, convention center, the Convention Visitor Bureau, city planners. We met downtown. We met at the convention center. We met in the Morningside place, and constantly discussing, debating, and just going through the process. And on behalf of the entire group, the 2 task forces that worked ahead of us, I think we just call them the 04 and the 05, the 07, 08, did a tremendous amount of work, saved us lots and lots of time and a lot of dollars, and they really are to be commended. They just spent an awful lot of time. And, of course, part of those folks are part of our resource group, and we appreciate that, and several are on this particular task force. I know there's those in the community who have said, and I've heard it, Terry's heard it, and I'm sure you have, what in the heck has taken so long? I mean, how can you possibly still be doing what you're doing? Well, this is a once-in-a-50-year project, and we wanted to do it right, and I really believe that we have. We're proud of what we're going to present here today. We think it'll serve the needs of the city for the next 40, 50 years, and many of us won't be here, but for the generations to come along, I think they can benefit, this city can benefit. And, as somebody that loves this place, it really gets no better than that. The reason we feel so comfortable with the product that we're going to present to you and ask your support is that when we got done, every single member of that task force, 18 people, unanimously voted in support of each and every item that we talked about and fought about and debated about over the last year and a half. And finally, I think you need to know this, this task force has just begun its work. No matter what happens down the road, we intend to go out the next year. We're not going to just drop this. We've come too far and worked too hard. We're going to be out in the public, and I don't think it's necessarily a sell job as it is to talk. Here's what we've got. Here's what we like about it. Tell us what you think. And again, if it's 550 or 200 people or in somebody's coffee shop or in your home, and I pledge to you that if you want us there, we'll show up. We're going to ask our task force members to be there. Like I say, it's too important to continue to work with. But again, Mayor Munson and council members, really, really thank you. And I'd like to turn it over to the Winkles now, and they'll take the next part of the presentation. Bob?
Thanks, Jim. I'm Bob Winkles with the Winkles Group, and this is my son Ross running the technical stuff, which I wouldn't be able to do. You should have before you a couple of reports, and I won't go through all of those. In fact, the slides that are on your screens are not going to follow this specifically, but we'll show you a little bit about what we showed people over this past 12 months or so that we've been attending various organizations, meetings, and whatnot, and similar things that we would hopefully present to people who want to learn more in the future, in the next year or so. One of the things Jim mentioned that we went through a lot of listening sessions. We did have some information there for them, some of the demographics of Sioux Falls. One of the things that in digging through those demographics, of course, was that the arena was built in 1961, and the population of Sioux Falls has grown 133% since that time. By 2040, the city is expected to reach a population of 300,000. The MSA is expected to reach 407,000. That's 368% more than in 1961. In the 10 years of census reporting now, that's the last one that's closed. We're not quite there for the next one, but in the previous, from 1990 to 2000, the city of Sioux Falls grew by 23%, and all age categories grew, with the exception of the 25 to 34-year-old young adults. Now, that's kind of alarming. That says they're finding some place that's offering more to live, and that's a concern. One of the things that was told to us actually by the manager down at the Tyson Center was that 40% of concert attendees are from 2 counties. That's Lincoln and Minnehaha County of South Dakota. So that's a pretty staggering figure of business going out of our city. The Fargo Dome, when we visited there, in the last 15 years, their manager told us that's had an economic impact of $690 million on the city of Fargo. Another item that is really an eye-catcher is that in Sioux Falls, currently, the leisure and hospitality business provides for more than 10% of the employment, direct employment, so people making beds and serving drinks and waiting tables and those kinds of things are in that leisure and hospitality industry. And then lastly, anytime we do a major construction project like this, any $100 million of construction creates 850 jobs for a 2-year period, and so $150 million creates 1,275 and prorated. To give a little chronological history here, and this is something that we did at the listening sessions also to tell people where we've been and where we're going. First of all, Howard Wood Stadium. It was constructed in 1956 and 1957. At the same time, a bond issue was voted on for the arena, and it failed. And that came back again and finally was passed in a revised version, and then it was built in 1960 and 1961. The population then was 65,000. Then we went along for quite a long time, feeling that our needs were fulfilled, and until 1996, 97, and that's when the convention center was constructed adjacent to the arena. Then again, we went along for a period of time. 5 years later, as a response to some inquiries from a lot of Sioux Falls citizens, the Parks Department hired a study to analyze whether or not the parks facilities combined with the school facilities was serving the needs of the citizens. And out of that came a discussion that there were some shortcomings, there were some needs, and the 2004-2005 Public Facilities Task Force was formed. Jim referred to them a little earlier. They went through a little over a year's period of work on those facilities and came out recommending 2 facilities, one an event center and the second a rec center. And as you know, in December of 2005, the rec center failed in a vote. The event center was never voted upon, but it went on hold, really, at that time, feeling that the climate was not right to accept this kind of recommendation. Then in 2007, the school district approached some of the business people in town who had been big supporters of previous turf going on Howard Wood and other improvements there, and said, we've got some things to fix, and we've got about $6.5 million identified to go after fixing those, but if we're going to go to the next step and make something more out of Howard Wood than it currently is, would you be interested in participating in that? Maybe we add suites, maybe we expand seating, do something so that when you drove by, you didn't just see what you have today, which is kind of what the $6.5 million would do, is just repair it. And some of those business folks said, time out, let's take a look at this, maybe there's another better way to skin this, and that was to look at the Coliseum Exploratory Group was then formed, and it really took a hard look at an indoor football stadium. And at the end of their working period, they made a presentation here, they also made a presentation with the school board, and then asked that that go to one of the governmental entities to be pushed forward, and that was then the result was naming the current task force. Here we've got a couple of pictures. It looks like Jim hasn't changed since high school, but Terry has up there on the right. So this task force was then formed in early 2008. We spent the first 6 months, as Jim mentioned, then in 2008 defining the needs in the listening sessions. Then we made our bus trips in the second chronology. And then in about middle of 2009, hired CSL, that's Convention, Sports, and Leisure. That's the second report you have in your hands, and those are professionals that look at the market and say what a market can support, do the performance, the financial reports, projections. They had also been involved in the prior task forces that looked at this, and they had been involved in the original convention center, and their numbers proved to be very solid. Then in mid to late 2009, we spent a bunch of time researching and developing these recommendations, and then now we're making this presentation. Going forward, we're looking at another year's worth of answering questions, presenting things to the public, getting public input, seeing if this is the right thing for our community. Early in 2010, for the proposed financing, or really any financing that involves tax money, we're capped out on just about everything that is a possibility, and that would take legislative action next spring to allow us to even have that possibility of voting ourselves, our citizens, to decide if we want to move forward with that. So that election would likely take place in the fall of 2010 if everything went through that way. So the earliest possible construction, whether that be on a part of this or all of it, would be in early 2011 if everything fell into place. So it is a pretty long project. Now, we've got a drawing here just to orient you to the current campus of the convention center and the arena. As you can see, Howard Wood Stadium is up to the upper left here, and the Sheraton Hotel in the upper right. Russell is across the top of the page. This is Western that comes here curving on the left. Canaries Baseball Stadium here. And then the next slide shows the preferred concept that the task force has developed, and we went through probably 15 different concepts of this at this location and other locations. And this is the preferred. And so the primary item here is the red box, which is a 12,000-seat basketball and hockey type event center. So that's as opposed to a football stadium. It is not an indoor football. It would be for arena football inside the hockey rink. The task force recommends that it be built large enough initially so that the shell can accommodate 15,000 seats, but that initially it be built to house at least 12 with expansion capability, and then also that above the suites, that area could be curtained off so the upper bowl was not part of the action if we had a 5,000 to 7,000 seating type of event for hockey or basketball. Then we're talking about reorienting the entrance to the southwest as opposed to the southeast where it is currently located. And this green element here is intended to be a very wide concourse which allows the flat floor space of the new event center to work in conjunction with the convention center, because this was a very important element that this task force felt was important. The economic impact is really in those flat floor events, the conventions, the family shows, those kinds of things, and thus tying this together to let everything work contiguous. What also was also the biggest reason for selecting this site as the recommended site. The blue here represents convention center expansion. So what we have talked about is actually where you come in the concourse now, if you can imagine mirroring that over so that the exhibit and ballroom spaces that are currently here flip over and are duplicated on this side, and that we end up with more meeting rooms on the outside here and offices to support that, increasing all of those spaces by about 75% over what they are today. And then here's the existing arena. This task force recommends that the arena stay, that some infrastructure repairs are made, upgrade that enough so that it serves us for 8 or 10 years at least. And we're talking about a range of somewhere in the $4 to $8 million spent in that. And one of the key elements here is that rather than just moving all of the current events, which really crowd the calendar currently, if you just move those over into a new facility, you haven't opened up any dates. You're not going to do more activity. And the key here is to have contracts with the teams that they may get bumped once or twice a year. If there's a big concert coming from Canada and we could make a big impact in our community by having that in, there won't be much notice, and if we don't have it available, it's going to move on to somewhere else. The Sheraton is shown up here as existing, but we're talking about in the yellow encouraging another hotel on campus. It's crucial in the convention business to have at least 400 rooms on site. We've got about 250 sitting here in the Sheraton, so we need at least 150 more in some area tied to this complex is the task force intention. And then over in this corner in the orange is shown a new bar restaurant that may be there. It may be part of this hotel, however that develops, but there's just a recognition that something is needed for activities around the site. Then we've done a conceptual 3D, kind of a virtual reality fly-through of what this could be if it develops this way. Again, this is a concept. You know, with computers nowadays, you can make it look like it's ready to build. It's a long ways from being ready to build. We would just tell you that. But this kind of shows the relationship of the current dock area of the arena and convention center. Both of them kind of share an area right here. And all of this then would be a secure area where 18-wheelers could unload at docks to the new event center. Here shows the tie-in of a hotel where you could actually go across behind the new event center and get into the activities over here without entering the event center itself. Now we're kind of going to zoom into the end of the building, so this kind of shows that upper level concourse, which could be secure, and you could go from the hotel over into that two-story space of the lobby here without getting into the event center if that was not being used at the time. One of the major issues, task force has recommended that we try to maintain as much flexibility in the space as possible. Here it's showing potential premium seating, loge-type seating, could be club seating. Blue is the suites. This happens to be a hockey setup, and it's showing an open end here where we wouldn't spend the money to build all of this with suites and restrooms and all of that if we're going to reserve that for expansion. So the upper concourse does go through those, so you can walk all the way around and use all the facilities. And this shows the hockey going into a football type of arrangement. You see the upper seating is blocked off by curtains in this use and in hockey. Now we're coming into the Skyforce basketball, and this is now showing with seats completed on the end. But at this point, we would have been completely out of luck if I was pushing the buttons. So now this is showing the upper, if we had the Summit League tournament, something that would use all of the seating. It shows the ends even filled in here. If there were a televised, like an NCAA playoff game, a lot of that seating might be used for television and whatnot, not usable by seating. This shows a center or an end stage concert configuration with just the original 12,000 seats, the end not completed inside. And then with it completed, with all 15,000 seats in place, and potential in the green area for additional suites as an option, or a restaurant, or whatever might be the case of demand at the time. And that's it for our report. I'll turn it over to Terry.
Well, good afternoon. The good news and the bad news is I'm last. So that's the good news, and the bad news is I'm last. So you don't have too long to go, okay? Maybe just a couple things. First of all, I think Wooster has the line of the last 18 months. When we first started the first listening session, he said, here I am standing up working on an event center. He said, I really should be spending my time working on assisted living. So we may have to help him out with that afterwards. Now, in front of you, my job is just to summarize, so I'll take just a few minutes, and we will leave time for questions, okay? So in front of you, the first thing you will have, which we said, is our final report. It's about 10 pages, and it gives you our recommendation. It comes from our task force. The task force did go on those major categories and took a vote from each of those. And surprisingly, we were unanimous on our recommendations to you in there, okay? This has been 18 months, as Jim showed you. The first 6 months, we went and did nothing but listening sessions. Just listen to the public, help us define what the need in the community was. The next 6 months, We used a ton of information that was with the prior groups and some of our groups, and all of our resource team was educating ourselves. So it took 6 months to do that, to go through everything that had been done. And the last 6 months, we've been working on all of the different options and trying to come up with what makes sense. I think our task force have been approached it not as a task force, but as what a citizen would do, because they approached it from their citizen responsibility. So that's one thing I want to say. The other thing is this is much more detailed. It will take you a little longer, but you may want to flip through here too. This is the CSL report, and we did contract with them even when they did it before, because then they go through and compare us to all the surrounding communities. They tell us our market shares. They tell us our loss of markets. They tell us about, they do interviews with some of our resource people and other communities and opportunities. This is the one that did the P&L for the operations of the property for us, and they helped us look at what we need to do with pricing so that the property would be in the black. So all of that material is in this one, okay? So let me maybe just summarize. And I think as a citizen and as a councilman, the first question that I'd be asking is why make the investment? That really is the first question as we speak to the citizens that will be watching on TV. Why make the investment? Our group really maybe was slightly different than the other two. We looked at culture and entertainment. We looked at sports. Those were parts of it, a big part of our community. They're a big part of our young adults that we need to get to our community that they look forward to. But about that time, we had national people coming in talking to our CVB. We also could find out how we could marry up as we visit other communities to do more for the convention business in this community, and how it dealt with our economic impact for the community. So at the end of the day, we probably spent more time trying to define what was the economic value to our community than anything else. And so let me just cite a few things, how important these can be as our city looks forward to the next 50 years. Our CSL report shows that this has a projected economic impact of 51 to 53 million annually per year. I think that's underestimated. You could ask the city finance to give you a comparison of our city revenues versus Fargo revenues. But I can tell you that in Fargo, CSL did theirs after the 15 years were done, and they're citing a $690 million economic impact over those 15 years, and our economy is much larger than that. So I think that number that CSL gave us is a conservative number, and that's a little bit their practice, and that's probably okay. Just letting you know what some of the other great people have done. When we had the regional soccer tournaments, for those 8 days, as you know, that's a $10 million economic impact that group did for our city. That's pretty important. The Summit Basketball League, Sports Authority people are here, coming, putting that together. A 3-day event has a $2 million economic impact. Nothing to say about what it does to the culture, what it gives us for viewing opportunities, and any of that. Pheasants Forever, I went to St. Paul last year just to witness that. They have talked to South Dakota. They should be in South Dakota. That's 25,000 attendees. Big deal. So I went to see them when they were in St. Paul. They're scheduled to go to Des Moines down the road. As we know, working with the CVB, our visitors coming into our community, that's all of us. That's not just the CV, but the entire, that's in excess of $250 million a year as they look at the number of their visitors that comes in here. Now, we also, as we look at this, need to do what we need to improve the quality of life of attracting and retaining our young adults into this community. Our task force has had the opportunity to meet with a couple of the organized youth groups and listen to them and have them be part of what we're doing. And they say the task force and what the city's looking at is right on. These are the type of things that they're looking for that is important to them. Sports, concerts, family shows, are all those things are part of what's important to them. Now, number two, and it happens slowly, a little bit at a time, but after so many years and all the new communities around us coming with new properties, you slowly start to see a gradual deterioration of your existing market. It doesn't happen all at once. It happens a little bit at a time, but added up over a short period of time, it has an impact. We could cite some businesses that were coming here for conventions that are going someplace else. We could cite concerts from 2 weeks ago that were coming, that called and talked to us about coming here that went someplace else. So, one-on-one, we can give you that. Doesn't happen all at once. Still have a lot of great things going. But we have to continue to increase the regional competition with a new facility. And there's no doubt about it. Our property has served us well. But as Bob said, you know the age of our property. And the other thing is, nowadays, there is an opportunity for the larger conventions and business fair that could be coming that we just can't accommodate based off the size. So I think those are a couple things that we should think about. Okay, let's be the progressive community we've always been. And what does it take for us to continue to be successful in the future? We can look at the age of our properties. They've been well maintained. Whoever planned them 50 years ago probably did a lot better job than we're ever going to do now, because they did a fantastic job, okay? But we have to look at it. It's not something we're competing with the next community at a time when transportation is much easier than it was years and years ago. And then we have to deal with the lack of space in our existing convention space. As you look at the CSL study, as they give you the comparison, we are in the bottom third as far as availability of space, and we're starting to hit the number of usage where it puts us at full-time capacity. So I think that was something that's very new. If you look at the CSL report, half that is devoted to how we help the CBB be even more successful in bringing us people into our town. And then the thing that was extremely important and why it's located where it is we learned from other communities. Flat floor space is the economic engine that drives this. And so we locate it, and our plan would be in such a way that you can use the convention space, our old arena, and the new event center, and those times when you need to bring the Presents Forever or whoever the big, gigantic one is, you can use your floor space, you can use some of your seating for the mass productions that they're going to do, and yet when you're not using it, you can make that available for all the other activities of the community. So we tried to get two uses out of it. And that's, if you ask the location question, that's really what drove the location question when by doing that. And a good place to go to look at to see that's used that same concept is Omaha and Des Moines have used that same concept, and we visited both of theirs. Okay, one other question that is asked, and rightfully so, why is sales tax the option that we're recommending? And I think probably three things to mention there. First, we think that based off the economic engine of our community, it would be a short duration of time. We could do it, I'll give you just a range, in 3 to 5 years. The sales tax would pay the entire capital structure off. We said now when we went into this, we said we have operations and capital. Let's not steal from the operational budget, naming rights, suite sales, whatever that may be, to help us on the capital, and then 5 years from now struggle on the operational side. So we have the monies going from those in the CSL report that you can look at to support the operation budget. Operationally, by the numbers that we're using, it could make a couple $300,000 per year by using that type of pricing. So we need to figure out how to pay the capital. And that's where we said the sales tax in a period of 3 to 5 years, depending on the exact number that comes out, that will be how you determine it. So that was one thing. The second thing, we understand if that's a hardship for some of our citizens, there ought to be an easy, convenient way for us as a community. We have to do it. Each community would have to do it as themselves as part of the enabling legislation, not as a statewide issue. So we'd have to give them a chance to get refunds if they want, so that could be made up, so we can help them. The other thing we had to be cognizant of, we cannot put our next 10 or 15 years into this facility and not let the city do what it needs to do for its capital improvement plan. And you understand better than anybody else what we need to do there. So that was the reason. We looked at all the multiple sources. The multiple sources are not big enough to handle a project that comes along once every 50 years. It's just not. And so that's why we ended up on that source. So I think we needed to mention that. Now, we would like to take some time and answer questions. You can ask them to the co-chairs. We can ask them to the task force, whoever you would like. Also, we'd like to let you know that after you, because we realize you just got this, so after you get a chance to look at it and study it, if you have any questions and would like to meet one-on-one, the chairs the task force, any of us would be happy to meet with you one-on-one and answer the questions as you go through those, as you go through our recommendations and deliberate on them. I think we would be remiss if we don't thank, I again did not thank our task force, our resource members, our school board for being there right along with us and making themselves available to approach all the options we can. I thank the city council for all those meetings that you came through. You had to listen to Wooster's joke, and you have my apologies for that. The members of the Sports Authority that have been there all along helping us do that. You know, but also part of our plan, as you look at it, is a transportation plan so that we know how we get the convention people to visit downtown, Falls Park, all around the city. That's part of our recommendation as you look at this also. Now, so it's proved to you that there is no such thing as a free lunch. I do come with one request, okay? I would ask that the administration bring forth a resolution of support in a December meeting sometime that's convenient for you. And that resolution of support would authorize us to start moving forth, if we get enabling legislation, to have the citizens look at this and vote on this in November of 2010. We also realize that it would be our responsibility, however it need to be done, to continue to take the next year and get out and form a communication panel. I don't like the word speaker bureau, because nobody wants to be on a speaker bureau, but I think they'd be on a communication panel. And we'd like to get 50, 75 people and going out and meeting every organization, individual businesses. We've already had invitations to go into businesses and to speak to their employees, just to lay out the information so people can make an informed decision when that time comes. So with that, I think, why don't we open it up for questions, and I'll ask Brother Wooster to come up here, and we'd be happy to answer questions, and feel free to ask them of whoever you would like.
Questions for the task force? Councilor Bennigan?
I'll be the first one. First of all, I don't think anybody congratulated or thanked Terry and Jim for their leadership in this whole process, so I think they deserve a round of applause. One of the strongest economic engines of this proposal is obviously the convention business. My question is, currently, just roughly, what percentage of the proposals that we make for convention businesses do we actually get compared to what the growth will be in the future?
I think our honest answer for that one would be, is Terry here? Okay, because I didn't hear, I'm thinking, oh, we're going to have to make up, no. Terry?
Terry,
Come on up, Terry, and you may want to talk about not even what we get, but what are the ones that we can't even bid on based on our size, Terry?
Yes, sir, I will. Good afternoon. The percentage of a business that we get of our convention bids right now, I'd say is pretty high, but let me explain that. We are extremely careful, and we do a lot of research on our bids before we go out. And we might do a lot of mail bids and a lot of telephone bids, but before we're out traveling, we research these things to death because of spending money to travel. So we're very, very careful with that. So the majority of bids that we do now, we have a pretty good shot at, but there are things like Pheasants Forever that we have talked to those people, I don't know how many times. The National Lutheran Women's Convention that was here a few years ago, we can't get them back. We can't even go back to rebid because we know we don't have enough space for their growth. And there are many, many, many others that I could name. So if we really wanted to get down to how many we quote-unquote lose or can't even go after, there would be quite a long list.
Okay.
any other questions? Councilor Staggers?
Oh, yes, me. Terry, you mentioned about the event center. Possibly we could make $200,000 to $300,000 a year. Now, is that just for the event center or the convention center?
No.
The reason I'm asking is because right now we're subsidizing the arena, we're subsidizing the convention center, and you're saying there's a possibility we could actually make some money. Can you explain that further?
Yes, and help me Jim and Bob, if I lose it, if I forget, if I state something wrong here. As we looked at the arena, the subsidy for the current arena was taken out, and we had the income in the new event center take care of the existing arena that'll stay and the new event center. I believe we did nothing with the money that was used for the convention space. That money stayed in. We did not take that money out, right?
This is page 43.
43.
Yeah, but that money did not come out. I think the city, just to give you an idea, I think the city is helping with Convention Visitors Bureau space with around $640,000, if I go by memory. As you looked at the CSL study, our friends to the west, Rapid City's budget is about $2.5 million. Now, one of our recommendation is to take what we're already thinking about, and you're talking about, what can we do with the room tax? And we did not use any of that room tax in our budget here. We said that room tax could be used to help us more competitive in our CVB budget and bids and that type of thing. So I think, short answer is, we've dealt with the old event center. That money is out, and that's supported by existing operations, but we did nothing with the CVB support that you're giving the CV now.
Okay, I guess I'm going to have to take a closer look at page 43. But the 200,000 to 300,000, you
Actually,
said that we would be
It
in the
went from a
black.
low, based on their numbers. If we did not charge any ticket price to some events, like give us one example. If we charge no ticket price, no small ticket price for parking and so forth on to some certain events, we could even generate a loss of 200,000. Well, we did not do that. So we said, with having a minimum price on all tickets that we were sold and no parking fee, we could generate, like it showed a generation of a profit on the event center and the older arena of $185,000.
Okay. But then we'd still lose money on the convention center.
There would be,
Yes.
well, that's something you would have to look at along with the new room tax of what you want to do. But that support, we did not take that support out.
Okay. And then also, a second question I have is in regard to tenants of the facility, the event center. Now, what has the Storm, the Skyforce, and our hockey team said about playing in the event center? I've heard comments that, they might like to continue in the arena. Can you explain that some more?
Yes, very good question. We have talked to all three sports teams. They made presentations to us. So we have set this up in such a way that it's their decision where they want to play. So we've left it up to them. As CSL put the first proposal together, though, what we did was we kept the rents fairly almost identical in the new facility as would be in the old facility, and then we did some revenue sharing, I shouldn't say cost sharing, revenue sharing that we would share with the team that would help the event center pick it up. And we've not even, until we got to that, have not even shared those numbers yet, until we went through there. After you share them with the sports teams, I think it would be much more attractive for them to play there, because the big question was, what are you going to charge me for the rents? But we can make it work. I think if you look at keeping it fairly flat and let them have that venue, it would be quite attractive. But either case, it would be their decision.
Okay. So as of now, as far as using the new event center, definitely we would have mega concerts in the event center. And then also the convention center people would also be using that for a few very large conventions. And so those are the two primary uses right now for sure.
And then you have to look at your marketing, what you would do with that size of venue. And they did do some prospects. And if we look at the CSL report, they'll give you some indication of some additional opportunities that you could use for that type of seating arrangement that are not even part of normal concert going and so forth. That's in there too. Yeah. But there will be some of the sports teams who want to use it also, I'm sure. Especially, we know our hockey sight lines are, need to be improved. So that would probably be one of the first ones.
Okay.
If I get, Kermit, I
Yes.
keeps coming up with the CVB.
Jim, could you step forward? You need to...
I think what's important from a business standpoint that we understand too is that we have a very professional organization with our local CVB here, okay? And I really do believe with most, and we had a lot of discussions about this, if we have the opportunities to sell the additional space, which Terry kind of alluded to in her brief deal up here, I believe we've got the organizations that are going to get out there and sell the space and fill up the additional space. What we did learn with the Summit League is that with the existing arena that we have, not only was it not large enough, we did not have enough facilities because we had to get out and negotiate with the sports teams that are already our primary tenants in that facility in order to make the Summit League work. A huge success that's going, they're so happy with this event that they signed on for an additional 2 years. So I think between our sports authority and the professionalism that Mike and the whole group there has shown, along with Terry and the CVB, we're going to fill this facility. And if you look at what the retailers in the City of Sioux Falls can do by making opportunities to get these visitors, additional new visitors into our businesses, we're going to generate additional sales tax along with that and provide opportunities for employment for our citizens and provide those lifestyle issues, I think, that we were all really concerned about when we were looking at this, too. I've been on part of 2 different task force, and in the years that I've done this, we all have come up with very close to the same conclusions. And I really firmly believe that if we don't take this opportunity, and I know there's challenges with the funding source, I understand that, but if we don't get behind this, I'm afraid that we're going to lose any future opportunities for a good period of time as we go forward here. A lot of us have worked on this a lot of years. A lot of businesses are making commitments or willing to make the commitments, but until we're really willing to build the facility, we're not going to get the troops really rallying behind us. So we really do need your support, and thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Brown?
A couple of questions. Do we know, and maybe the report tells us this, but how many trade show days need to be filled to meet the expectations?
We do 2 things. It does. If we go through the report, we'll talk about how many we have existing, how many incremental new we've added, and that's all in there. The other thing we're going to do, question may be asked, why, and we struggle with this too, why would you build a new facility and keep the existing facility? We looked at that also, and we studied that. And the thing that really helped us when Russ and Scott brought their calendars, and we looked at the calendars, and then we looked at some organizations came to us and said, you know, we need a venue, but we really can't afford to pay what the number you're going to need to use for the new event center. I mean, if you have 50, 100, 300, 500 people, the rent, they just can't afford that much. So we got to looking at this, and we said, we have a very functional facility for not very much money that'll last us, like Jim said, for another 10, 15 years easily. So then we come back, and then Russ started giving us a list of people that would come, but he had conflicts for other things in there. So we start putting together 2 lists. What would we use the new event center for, and how do you promote that, and what's your new ones? And what were the ones that we had to tell no, that we had a conflict on existing days in the old one? So you're almost building a calendar under both. And I don't want to cite to that number for sure, but in the CSL report, there's like 57 sticks in my mind, but until we look in there, there's one page that summarizes existing, and then the new, and it gives you an idea what the new are also in there.
Great,
And
thanks.
then very quickly, Vernon, I always think concerts and sport, but you got farm show, circus, home show, sports show, all that are. I mean, they're there. They're there on a certain dates. No matter who wants to come to town, they're in there. So it's not just the sports and entertainment. It's a big function out there.
And then probably the next question would be probably more for Terry. Long-term, any changes in expectations for trade shows? I hear of virtual trade shows. I hear of larger cities struggling a bit right now, but what are you reading long-term?
Long-term, I really think that things are going to bounce back. We've done actually, pretty well through this so-called recession time. We've held our own pretty well. The thing that's hurting us more than anything is that as these trade shows are growing, our facility isn't big enough, so they're moving on to Omaha or St. Paul or someplace else. So, we've lost them, and some of them have said, hey, if you guys ever add on, give us a call, because we'll come back. But I would expect that the trend will pick back up and people will continue to go, especially to more economical locations like Sioux Falls is.
Thanks, Terry. And then last is probably more a question for school board members. I get asked this often, and I don't know the answer to it. People ask me, with a combination of all the stadiums that have come online in Sioux Falls and the practice field at the high schools, why do we need another facility to come online for the outdoor football?
We've had conversations. By the way, good to see you.
Thanks
for having us. We've had conversations with Augustana about sharing a facility. We've actually even looked at bringing the home fields at each of the high schools up to a standard that would allow us to maybe host games up to 2,500, 3,000 people. But by the time we get there, we're spending $14-15 million just to do that. The problem we ran into in our conversations with Augie was just number of dates, number of events. We couldn't fit it all in. We would have had to have upgraded the home fields on top of trying to share a facility, and so we would have been it would have been a more expensive option for the school district. It seems almost intuitive that we could have shared facilities, but unfortunately, we use them more than people think. We're out at Howard Wood Field almost every night of the week through the fall.
Great. Thanks, Darren.
Any other questions for any of the task force, or Councilor Jameson?
Does anybody have a number on what we spent to build the current convention center back 12 years?
About 19.
19
It
million?
was about $19 million. I think there was, 18, and there was a million, there was something added to it, so forth. So it ended up about 19.
And then they did change order, bring precast in, like you see.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Well, we would thank you.
No, I do.
Councilor Staggers?
Yes, I do.
I just about got away from it for you to ask the last one.
Well, this question just came to my mind, and so I thought I'd better ask it now. I understand CSL says we have to have a commitment for a second hotel to attract larger conventions so we can expand the convention center. Can you say something about the second hotel, which is apparently very critical in all this?
What they recommended, CSL's recommendation to be competitive and help Terry on conventions, they wanted 400. They recommended 400 rooms on site. They call it, so the conventioners could come. That leaves us what was it? About 150 short. Okay, about 150 short. So again, there is no commitment, but city and other people have had inquiries, or existing as it is now, and talked with people that have had interest, but there is no commitment. It's gone nothing further than that. But to add the 130 rooms, it's not like we're talking an elaborate amount of rooms. We're hoping, maybe the right property, you maybe even want to add more than that. And we want to make sure there's space available and left so that could happen.
Any other questions for the task force? Well, if not,
Thank you.
On behalf of the City Council, we certainly want to extend our thanks for all the time and the effort, everyone on the task force and the resource people again, and we will take you up on your offer to continue to be involved. We appreciate it very much. Any other open discussion for the City Council standpoint? If not, a reminder to all, I'm sure you'll all want to stick around for the joint Sioux Falls City Council and Minnehaha County meeting. It'll be just as entertaining, I guarantee it. So we are adjourned.